part of the series. The series is called Making Emotions Our Allies. And today's topic is how are emotions constructed? The constructed theory of emotions. So, when we look at the classical view of emotions, it is that each emotion has a distinct set of fingerprints in the body, which means each emotion has a distinct set of bodily sensations. So, if you're angry, your facial muscles, the facial expressions will change. There will be certain bodily changes. Your breathing rate will change, your heart rate will change. All these are distinct fingerprints in the body. So the classical view holds the view that each emotion causes one distinct set of fingerprints in the body. And each emotion has a pattern in the brain as well as in the body. And we spoke about this in the first video. So there are two things. The classical view suggests that our emotions are fixed and they are part of the evolutionary process. By fixed, I mean they have a fixed biological nature, and that emotions are universal. So the view is that there are six universal emotions. You have happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust. And they can be identified by the facial muscle movements that you have. And these are universal. However, research done by Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she talks about this extensively in her book, How Emotions Are Made, and it's an excellent book. I would suggest you to read it. In that, she says that the research shows that despite so much research in this area of the classical view of emotions, that emotions are universal, there has been no consistency that is found in this theory, that there is no consistent physical fingerprint for even a single emotion. So, what they did was there were experiments when the electrodes were attached to the person's face to measure how the facial muscles were moving when they were having an emotional expression. And they found that there was more of variety than uniformity. So, according to her in the book and according to the research, um, the view is that emotions are constructed. They are not universal, but they vary from culture to culture. And I agree with that. They definitely vary from culture to culture and that they are constructed. And we'll talk about how they're constructed. So, again, going back to earlier research, which suggested that, you know, emotions and their facial expressions are hardwired and that they do not differ from culture to culture. That was the classical view as well. A study conducted in 2012 demonstrated that we do not have a universal language of emotion. So, if you are sad or you're angry or you're happy, then each of these emotions are seen in distinctive ways, in different ways, as facial expressions, and that differs from culture to culture and from person to person. So the study found that the Chinese participants, they relied more on the eyes to represent the facial expressions, and the white Western Caucasians relied more on the eyebrows and the mouth. So this theory says that we create emotions, that they're constructed with one, physical properties of the body, the physical sensations in the body, two, the brain, of course, and your culture and your upbringing. So the social context has a huge role to play in this. And the thing is, very interesting that our face has, as you would already know, 42 small muscles on each side, the left and the right. And the facial expressions that we see on others are a combination of these muscles relaxing and contracting, causing the skin to move. So, according to the classical view, the emotion that is displayed on the face as a facial expression is, of course, based on the muscle movement, but the muscle movement is very unique to each emotion. But the constructed view suggests that an emotion does not have a single facial expression, but a diverse set of facial expressions. And these expressions vary from one context to the other. So it's completely context dependent and culture dependent. And the bodily responses to different emotions are so similar that you cannot say that they are distinct fingerprints, which means the tightening in my chest, which is a bodily sensation, a distinct fingerprint, can be representing fear, or it can be representing sadness, or it can be for some other emotion, which means that the same bodily sensation, like tightening in the chest, can be for a number of emotions, not just for one emotion. So it doesn't mean that if I have tightening in the chest, it shows that I'm sad. That could be one emotion that the bodily expression shows. So the same emotion is going to vary in the same individual and in other individuals and in different contexts, because the way the bodily sensations show up will vary. So, another thing which is very interesting that she talks about in her book is that the amygdala, it does not contain the main birthplace of fear. It's not the main place where fear is located. We think as if this is the place, this is the region in the brain where fear is located. But fear cannot be localized to a single region. Fear is not created by just one set of neurons, but by a combination of different neurons, and this is known as degeneracy, which means many to one. So, we do know that emotions arise because of firing neurons, but there are no specific set of neurons that are dedicated specifically to an emotion, and this is really good. I love this part. So the brain uses, another thing is that the brain uses concepts to give meaning to external things as well as our internal sensations based on our prior experiences. So let's say if you have an increased heart rate, your brain is going to construct an instance of anger or fear or excitement based on that bodily sensation and the context. So the same increased heartbeat will be experienced as a different emotion in different contexts. It could be fear, it could be anger at another time, it could be exhilaration at another time, and that is called an emotion concept. So basically, what your brain does is your brain makes meaning of the emotion concept from your bodily sensations along with your external sensations that you get from the environment, and the brain then constructs an instance of emotion. So, what is an emotion? If we look at the constructed theory of emotion, then emotion is your brain's creation of what your bodily sensations are, what they mean in relation to the context, in relation to the world around you. So, the context has a lot of importance, it has a lot of significance when we think about emotions. And according to Lisa Feldman Barrett, she says that in every waking moment, your brain is going to uh, look up the past experiences that have been organized as concepts, and it's going to guide your actions and give the bodily sensations a meaning based on the concepts that your brain has formed on the basis of past experiences. And based on these emotion concepts, your brain constructs an instance of emotion. So, let me give you an example to make it clearer. Let's say you're experiencing fluttering in your heart, right? And you are in a giant wheel at a theme park. So, according to your brain's prior knowledge of you being on a giant wheel in the past, it's going to give that the meaning to that fluttering heart as an instance of excitement. Now, take the same fluttering of the heart when you are waiting for your dentist to show up, and obviously then it's going to be an instance of fear. So the same fluttering of heart, the same bodily sensation is in different contexts will be giving you different instances of emotion. So just because you have a fluttering of heart, it does not mean that you're afraid or you're sad. It depends on the context, and based on that, the brain is going to give the meaning to that bodily sensation. So the reason I like this theory is because it says that emotions are not just our reactions to the world. It's not that we are just passively, receiving inputs from the world. We are actively constructing emotions based on the sensory input that you get, the past experiences. Your brain is going to give meaning to this and construct a instance of emotion, and it'll tell you what to do. So like we spoke about it earlier, that emotions are action requiring neurological programs. That is true. So when I talk about concepts, the brain already has a storehouse of concepts that represent past experiences, and it's going to match it with your bodily sensation and the context that you're in. So the idea behind constructionist view is that, number one, that emotions do not have a distinct fingerprint, meaning that they do not have any one kind of distinct physical bodily sensation. One instance of emotion is not going to look like another instance of emotion. So one instance of sadness or anger is doesn't have to look like another instance of sadness or anger. It's going to differ. It's going to differ according to the culture, according to the context, according to the way you've been brought up, according to the way your brain is going to construct the meaning of the experience. The second thing is that according to neuroscience, our brain wires itself to experience. And emotions aren't genetically determined. The familiar concepts that you have to make sense of the world are basically built in based on the social context and your upbringing and the culture. And each culture can make a different meaning from the same kind of sensory input. Have you thought about this? You meet somebody from um, another culture, and have you sometimes misjudged what they are experiencing? You might be thinking that they're frowning because of something, while the reason might be something completely different. That's because of this, that each culture makes a different meaning from the same sensory input, same kind of sensory input. Now, so you can make a different meaning out of the same kind of sensory input that your friend is receiving, right? So the friend is receiving one kind of sensory input and the same kind you're receiving, but you're making a different meaning out of it, and the friend is making a different meaning out of it, meaning different instances of emotion. And the last but not the least is, of course, the social context is so important because our feelings are influenced by our beliefs, our social context, our past experiences, the negative experiences, the positive experiences. All of that influences how we construct emotions. So we ask not where the emotions are made, but how does the brain create an instance of emotion? How does the brain create an instance of sadness, for example, or anger, for example, or guilt or shame, for example? So we don't just have emotions, we make them. And this is a much more empowering view than the classical view, in my opinion. So we construct our emotional experiences, and we also construct our perceptions of what others are feeling. And this view, and with all the research that backs it, presents a far more inviting view of emotions, because you will feel more in control of your emotions when you know that you're actively constructing emotions rather than thinking that the emotions are controlling you. So that's going to be all for today, and I hope you liked the constructive theory of emotions, and I hope you're going to give me your feedback, and I'll be back with the next part of this series, and it's all obviously going to be about emotions again. So, till then, have a great time and take care of yourself. And thank you for joining me.